Good evening and welcome to Cornerstone Home Inspector Education Center. Tonight we have Dylan Tracy from Pure Point Water Solutions, and he is going to be giving a presentation on water quality, what we should be looking for, what they do. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and just break in. And then once you've asked your question, please, mute yourself again. And we will take any questions during the webinar. And I'm going to hand it over to Dylan and take it away.
Thank you, Jim, and appreciate everyone joining the conversation here this evening. It's a pleasure to be here to present to you guys about the water treatment space. It's something that's getting a little bit more in the focus for homeowners, for business owners, and we are a residential water treatment business located in Old Greenwich, Connecticut. And I'm super excited to share a little bit more about what we do and what our organization tackles, and also, most importantly, share some information for you guys about how you can have more educated conversations with homeowners as to what they should be on the lookout for, things that should be top of mind for them as they go through the home buying process and navigate both health concerns as well as things that might be improved in their home to improve the longevity of their home. And I'm really excited to share a little bit more about what we do and how we help guide homeowners towards treating the water. And so what we do is we focus on water treatment, and this is for two main categories. It's the water that's coming into somebody's home, which we refer to as the working water, and then the water that they consume, which is the drinking water. And so what we do is we go into a homeowner and we understand what's going on in their water quality. We conduct a test and lead with data to understand what are the challenges in their water. And there's a big difference between well water as well as city water. And what we do is we try to understand what's going on in their water, whether they have hardness, whether they have total dissolved solids, which is like sediment, other little contaminants that make its way naturally into their water. Then we recommend a number of solutions to address those. And it can range from treating hard water, which is calcium and magnesium buildup in the water, which can impact the longevity and the lifeline of certain appliances, as well as treating water that people are concerned about for cooking and for eating and for consumption for their homes and their families. So we lead with data. It's really important when you're in the water treatment space to understand what is going on in someone's home and what's going on within the water to then make a recommendation based on what the data says. And so our expertise is to lead with data to understand what is going on in someone's home and then make a recommendation with a number of different products to then address those concerns. So water quality, it's something that the new presidential administration is talking about. It's something that's important to understand because it can have a number of health and neurological implications for someone's home. Lead, arsenic, nitrates are a number of common contaminants that make its way into a water source, and it's important to address those because it can impact both your stomach, the development of your brain, and then also have a big impact on your overall health and longevity. So the first thing we always try to address is the safety of water to make sure that there's nothing in the water. And if there is anything in the water, we can address it with a number of different treatments from a whole home carbon filter to a water softener, and then also leveraging a reverse osmosis filtration system to address all the water that they're consuming and then they're cooking with. The other element, as highlighted in number 2 here, is about property protection. So hard water is kind of nasty. It has this like little film that can be on your skin and kind of build up over time. It can also foul appliances. So water heaters, their lifeline can be reduced by anywhere from like 30 to 50% when hard water is consistently running through the water heater, as well as dishwashers and overall appliances in the home. They can foul up. Homeowners will have to spend a bit more time in terms of cleaning their home on a day-to-day basis. And we find that good water treatment and water health will actually help the longevity of a homeowner's appliances. They're not going to get stuck with a big bill for trying to replace a water heater and the like. Then the other thing that people really care about is, a good investment in a whole home water treatment system will also help the health of a homeowner's investment. If someone's put $10,000-$15,000 into a water treatment plan, it actually helps the resale value, and it helps the marketability of their home for future buyers. So here we are talking about the health risks of contaminated water. So there's a lot of contamination that can make their way in through agricultural runoff. PFAS has been in the news, and there's a lot of talk about these forever chemicals that make its way into your waterway that can have long-term health implications. And there's also cancer risks from bad water. So we really try to identify, and it's important to understand for homeowners what is going on in the water. So like lead, mercury, and arsenic in the middle column here can have long-term neurological effects. And every homeowner, women and fathers in particular, are very concerned about children being exposed to elevated levels of lead and mercury, because it can have impacts for their children's IQ. And then on the cancer risk side, long-term chlorination and the byproducts of chlorination that happens from natural water treatment in the city water can also have impacts long-term on your bladder, your kidney, and some colorectal cancers as outlined. So there's a lot of different things that people should be aware of. And it's important, I think, to state that you don't want to try to lead with fear or concern around what's happening in the water, but more to lead with data to allow people to understand like what's actually happening. So here we are talking about some of the common water contaminants. So the first thing that you want to think about and be able to speak to your homeowners in the buying process and the consultation process with home inspectors is this notion of heavy metals. Lead can damage the brain development in children, as we mentioned. Mercury is very nasty and can attack your neurological system. And arsenic is also a lead contaminant that can lead to several types of cancer. On the biological contaminant front, E. coli, salmonella, those are words and illnesses that everyone is sort of familiar with. But then there's also chemical pollutants that can make its way into the waterway. If you live near a golf course, if you live near an agricultural site, there's a lot of chemicals that get naturally put into our food, which is a concern for another day, but can also implicate and be a concern around your working water and the water going to your home. So heavy metals, some of these biological contaminants and chemical pollutants are the three main water contaminants that your homeowner should be aware of, and help guide them through conversations and let them know that there's addressable solutions to these contaminants. Yep, we were just talking about agricultural runoff. So golf courses, even just like you're in the woods and homeowners who are on well water, it's actually up to the responsibility of a homeowner to address their own water concerns and quality if they are on well water. And that's a big thing in Connecticut for folks. It's important to be able to share more about like what's happening in their well and test adequately for that. Industrial discharge is another thing. Manufacturer releases chemicals that can make its way into the water. PFAS, which are these known as these forever chemicals, can make its way into a water And it's important to try to address those with a solution called reverse osmosis, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then there's also just like aging infrastructure and aging pipes and natural contamination that makes its way into folks' water that you want to try to guide people through and share more about, what the concerns are and help them understand, what are the contaminants that are most common. And the good thing, again, for all homeowners is that there's addressable measures that can be made for both their working water as well as the consumable water, so that they can have peace of mind that their home investment is being protected, and then everyone living in their home can also be adequately protected from these sources of water contamination. So the previous slide was focused a bit on contamination. Hard water is a problem and actually ties into the idea around like the investment that you can make into prolonging the investment that you're making into a home. And hard water isn't actually a health concern in itself. It's more of a concern around your appliances. So calcium and magnesium, which actually is naturally occurring and can make its way into a lot of well water and even in some city water scenarios in some regards, actually can reduce the lifeline, the longevity of water heaters just by having the water run through, sort of foul up the application and reduce the longevity of the system itself. And so whenever you have a hard water problem, and in Connecticut, the water is moderately hard. There's some areas of the country like Michigan, Texas, and Florida where the water is very, very, very hard. And you can notice like a significant difference in terms of the quality. But a lot of homeowners are choosing to make the investment in a water softener, which can range anywhere from like $3,000 to $6,000 a year. That will actually help reduce the hardness of their water, and make sure that you're not, spending undue money on water heater replacements, dishwasher replacements, washers, and even appliances. Your appliances and your shower heads can also get fouled up quite quickly when you have hard water, and it's something that's easily addressable. So lots of homeowners are making the call to actually, invest in a solution to address those challenges. One thing so the signs of hard water, you can even see it sometimes if you were to make coffee and with, put a cup of water into the microwave and do one of those quick tea packets or a quick coffee mixture and put it into your water, and you reheat your water for a minute, heat it up, put the coffee or the tea in there, and you can actually see this little film that gathers at the top level of the water, and it's a clear sign that you have of hard water. So there's a number of ways you can actually notice this in terms of the consumption of water, but it's actually not a health concern in itself. But one of the other benefits that I haven't talked about around hard water is that you can actually use less soap. So you can even save some money in your overall consumption of soap, whether it's dishwasher soap, whether it's using soap to actually clean dishes, or even in a washer itself, you can put less soap in there because you need less to interact with the actual hard water when it's soft. There's less concentration of this calcium and magnesium that makes it a bit stickier and harder to use in daily application. So hard water, as seen in some of these pictures here, can definitely show in your cleaning activities as well as your overall consumption.
Dylan, this is with city water also. This doesn't necessarily have to be well water.
Yeah, we've definitely seen. So we're over in Old Greenwich, Connecticut, and the Bridgeport Aquarian water system, which supports most of Fairfield County. There is also hard water, moderately hard water, and it's always measured in grains per gallon. So if you want to have a smart conversation with a homeowner, grains per gallon, anywhere from like 3 to 5 to 7 grains per gallon of hard water is considered moderately hard. And then anything over 7 grains per gallon, that's a good data point and a number to drop-in conversations with homeowners, that's where they would definitely want to look into the investment for a water softener.
And that softener would be the same for city water and would be for well water, where the tablets or that kind of stuff, filtration.
Yeah, so the softener would work in both scenarios. We'll get into that in a few slides, but the basic mechanism, you basically run the water through a tube, and it's like a 5-foot system that plugs right into your main water line where it comes into the home, and it runs it through this thing called an ion exchange. So all of the water coming into the homeowner straight from the source in the main water line coming into the home, we would install a water softener right there before it continues on to feed the rest of the home and the rest of the appliances. And the water runs through an ion exchange. And what it does is it actually runs it through a 5-foot tube that's about 12 inches wide. And there is an exchange mechanism in the middle that's like a circular tube that sits within the water softener, and that ion exchange actually captures all of the calcium and magnesium. It's very sticky, and it basically captures the calcium and magnesium in the center cylinder within the water softener. And then at the end, after the capacity has been filled up, you actually use a regeneration cycle, which is leveraged by a very heavy salt formation. So the thing to know about a softener is that it's like a 2-part system. You have the softener, then you have a brine tank. So after 10 days or 14 days of water consumption, you actually need to do a regeneration cycle that will inject a salt water brine into the softener that then flushes all the calcium and the magnesium that's been caught in the cylinder in the middle, and it flushes it all out to basically set up the system to be leveraged again for good and for new. And so for any homeowner that wants to buy a softener, there is also the element that they will have to, probably depending on water consumption and the number of people living in the home, every 3 to 4 weeks, potentially a little bit more, potentially a little bit less, they're going to have to take a 40-pound bag of salt and actually put it into this brine tank to regenerate this solution that can then be washed through the system to reset it for normal consumption. And the important thing to note here is that even if they are not putting a ton of salt into the system, like their water is still going to work. They're still going to have the right pressure in their home for all appliances. Just the efficacy of the softener is going to be reduced if they don't have that salt solution that then washes off all the calcium and magnesium after it's been captured in the center cylinder via the water softener.
Gotcha. If you're viewing this as a pre-recorded event, your viewing code is water 3282. That needs to be submitted after you watch the video. So benefits of water softener?
Yep. We talked about this a little bit. Appliance protection can prolong the life of a washer dryer, prolong the life of shower heads, prolong the life of a water heater. You can use less soap, which is that notion of more efficient cleaning. It prevents buildup and scaling in your pipes and your fixtures to make sure you don't have to have an expensive piping replacement. And you also, I talked about that film that captures on your skin. You notice the water is actually improves the quality of your actually showering, your washing. So a bunch of folks actually notice the benefits of softer skin and softer hair upon completing the purchase of a water softener. And then, one thing we also haven't talked about is that the heating efficiency of your hot water tank will actually, not only will you have to use less soap and detergent, but there's better efficiency of the heater itself when the water that's going through it is considered soft. So there's a multitude of benefits across both aesthetics as well as like your material investment in your home. So there's kind of like two ways that you can address water treatment in a home. It's either via a softener, which we've kind of covered at length, and there's also something called a carbon filter, which you can install that goes right into the water line. It's a similar process where it connects right into the main water line and then filters all of the water through. And a carbon filter has like coconut charcoal carbon, little carbon pieces all ground up and put into the center of this 5-foot, 6-foot device that sits in a basement of a homeowner. And then all of the water gets washed through that system and can actually help reduce the chloramines, which you talked about, the cancer benefits, then also can help reduce the arsenic, barium, and other heavy metals that is coming through a system. And then, for homeowners that have particularly foul water, you can also add additional filters on top of the carbon filter that it provides additional levels of security. And that can be a PFAS filter, that can be a heavy metal filter, that can be a filter that addresses nitrates in the water, which you actually have to inject air into the water to change the formation of what the water looks like before it gets treated. So that's the important reason why you need data to drive your decisions around how you're addressing the water. And then the other element of a whole home filtration system is what you would call the consumable water. And that's all the water that comes out of the sink. And the best way to address that is with a reverse osmosis system. And I'm sure folks have heard about an RO, or they've seen a little tap that sits to the right of a sink in a homeowner's kitchen. And the way that works is it's the same water, and ideally you've stacked it with either a carbon filter or a softener. So the RO is like an additional level of protection, and that filters the water through a 5-step process with a sediment filter, a carbon filter, a reverse osmosis membrane that pushes all the water and uses 1 gallon of water consumption. And it expenses 1 gallon of water, and it pushes it through a very sticky RO membrane that takes out all the contaminants that you could possibly imagine. It's the highest level of water quality that you can get outside of a lab. And then that way, your forever chemicals, PFAS, heavy metals, even things like E. coli and bacteria that we referenced previously, that will also always be eliminated via a PFAS. So in a whole home protection system, which we're talking about here on this slide, it's a combination of both either a softener or a carbon filter, and then a reverse osmosis drinking water system, which will primarily pretty much always be in a sink. Some homeowners go overkill and buy a $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 whole home RO system, but we find that that's kind of overkill because from the by and large, in a homeowner or in a home, they're not necessarily drinking all of the water that they're showering with or drinking the water that's going into their appliances, but they want to make sure that they have really good quality water for their primary, cooking and drinking and eating sink. So it's just like the go-to stop, the RO system for all water consumables in the home. So this is exactly it. So an RO system has a 5-step process, and it includes like a tank that can hold up to about 2 gallons of water that sits under someone's kitchen sink, and it's very simple to install. But it has a pre-carbon filtration, it has a carbon filtration, and then that membrane that pushes all of the water through. And so any of the contaminants that you see in the kind of like the left-hand side here in that third image, it gets pushed through, and only the highest quality water gets dispensed out the end. And then there's a final polishing filter to make sure that the water tastes really great. And so pretty much everyone who has an RO system can notice the difference between your water and what you had previously. And it removes, if you see in the very bottom, up to 99% of all contaminants from lead, arsenic, fluoride, and a whole host of other potential pollutants. And this is a little caveat too. The Environmental Protection Agency also has a website that I can drop in the chat that actually outlines, it's actually the EWG report, and it shows based on your zip code where you live in Connecticut, what is the most common seen contaminants in your waterway. And that's a great report that you can actually share with your homeowners to actually give them a little bit more information about what's going on in their water and what other homeowners have seen. So yeah, there's the image of an RO. It's lightweight. It's not going to lead to a huge water bill, and it reduces about 99% of the it's actually like rated to 99.9% of the contaminants, and has a 5-step process that each addresses a certain element of the water quality for a homeowner. And if someone is not interested in a carbon filter or a softener, an RO is a great step. It's like $1,000 to $1,200. Change the filters once a year, and it's super easy to install and can be a great solution for homeowners that just want to make sure that the water that they consume is of the highest quality. Any questions thus far?
I think we're talking along. No one's putting anything into the chat. So I think we've gone over health benefits with improved overall health, better skin. You talked about let's see what we got on the next slide. And then again, you talked about extension of the dishwasher, washing machine, water heaters. All that will last longer because it's better water going through your system. And can you talk about aesthetic watering again?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the taste enhancement when you take out that kind of like metallic taste, or even that like carbon taste. Like some people complain about like chlorine smell that comes into your water that can be injected from the waterway and the water source that is trying to treat your water, but it can also lead to like a certain smell. And then also with an RO, you kind of reduce that sulfur or that egg smell that sometimes makes its way into the water. And then you just will have a better cooking experience overall. If you're making coffee, you're able to see that like there's less sort of thin film. And this is a minor plug, and I'm not sure if the home inspectors on the call want to do this, but you can buy from Amazon. It's like $20, and it's called a TDS meter. It's called Total Dissolved Solids. You can take a cup of water and just put water in there, and you put the water in the cup, and then you put the TDS meter right in there, and it can give a very quick reading to give a homeowner a sense of what are the total dissolved solids. And the good rule of thumb for an RO system is that it can reduce up to 90% of the TDS in your water. And that's just a simple way of thinking of like little sediment, little rock, little things that naturally make its way from the pipes and from the water source that you can reduce and help ensure that a homeowner has like really great drinking water. So that's a little bit of a plug for a TDS meter that could be a good little, nice touch for your home inspections.
Sure, thank you. Environmental.
Yeah, I mean, we homeowners, we've worked with homeowners that don't trust their cooking water and their consumable water. We've worked with folks that go through a crap load of bottles of water. Everyone knows them, the 20-ounce Poland Springs Crystal Rock bottles that you can buy at any supermarket. I think the United States puts something like 100 million, goes through 100 million of these bottles of water a year. And with a country of 330 million people, that's not entirely surprising, but all of that does go to a landfill somewhere. And everyone probably on this call has their own opinion about the efficacy of recycling, but you can reduce the amount of water bottles that you have to purchase in a home, knowing that you have a really good water filtration system in place. And we've even seen, some homeowners have the 5-gallon jugs that they buy and they use, and they don't trust any of the water going into their home. And the 5-gallon jugs weigh 40 pounds. They're kind of unwieldy, and they're tough to manage, and they're tough to store. And if you can reduce the delivery times of those 5-gallon jugs, if you can reduce the amount of times you need to go to the supermarket and spend money on bottles of water. There's a number of environmental benefits towards basically moving to a bottleless water approach.
Cost savings, this is a chart we're running, and it's a video, but the importance of regular water testing.
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to any trusted water professional. We provide a number of free in-person tests that we can do and test the water both before and after installing a system to give a homeowner, quality of and peace of mind, knowing that the water has been significantly improved upon installing a water treatment system. But it's important to get your water tested every once in a while, especially if you're on a well water. And about 25% of the homeowners in Fairfield County have well water, and it's important to test that consistently because you never know what kind of runoff can come into your water. And we recommend about once a year to do a basic water test. And either a water treatment professional like our team can come over and do that test. And there's also a number of tests that you can purchase online, ranging anywhere from $50 up to $200, where you can send it into a lab and get a full readout on 50 different contaminants that might be in their water.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that during a home inspection, I could tell you on our end, I personally don't like to upsell to a client. I sort of just sit there, do the home inspection. I let them know what services we have. I let them know what's important. But the final decision's there. But one of the things I do press them on, especially if it's well water, and that hasn't been the test I go by at least the last month or two, I'm not going to trust something that it's even a year old, especially when someone's selling a house. Maybe they're not keeping up with cleanliness and maintenance. I push them into the water test because it's just so important. Can you comment on the state of Connecticut with arsenic and uranium at all? Do you have any experience with that? That they're trying to really get us to test and a database going with what's going on in Connecticut?
Yeah, arsenic is kind of a hot topic that a lot of homeowners are concerned with. People get mailers in the mail, and they get sent notifications about concerns around arsenic. It is something that you need a special bubble test for, and there's a specific system that you can get it installed to address arsenic concerns. But it's something that the best thing to say to a homeowner is that we have treatment methods available. It's something that you definitely want to address and test for once a year, but most of the time it's only in 5-10% of homeowners who have arsenic and barium concerns. So it's just something to test for periodically, and then let them know that there's a number of different resources they can use to address those concerns.
Customized water treatment solution is sort of what you got.
Yeah, we talked about this. You want to get an assessment. You want to get a recommendation. We encourage people to get multiple bids and multiple quotes and do their research. And then once someone wants to understand what's in their water, look at their data and see what would be the right recommendation, we can then implement a system, have it installed. Usually within 3 or 4 hours, we can come in and bang out an installation. And it's best to do it during the day when there's minimal, people home. Maybe kids are at school or at camp, or folks are working, because you do have to turn the whole water off in the home and then install the system after while the water's turned off. But from there, you can then monitor the test and see what the efficacy is of the system. And there's a number of basic tests like the TDS that I mentioned that can be delivered to a homeowner upon completion of the installation of a system.
Regulatory standards?
Yeah, the EPA gives very basic guidelines that you definitely want to address if you're above the EPA's recommendation. It's something that you definitely want to tackle. But based on what is in the water and based on the data, you then want to make a recommendation, whether it's from a carbon filtration, as I referenced, a water softener, which is that ion exchange. Then we also, I haven't referenced this, but there's for bacteria, you also can install a UV light, which would be the final polishing touch on a water filtration system that shines a high infrared UV light, which doesn't impact the quality of the water from a consumption perspective, but it neutralizes all bacteria like E. coli and other like living bacteria that may make its way into a water. So it really depends on what someone is dealing with. And then PFAS, the only way to address PFAS is with a reverse osmosis system. It has to go through that 5-stage process where it has a pre-filter, sediment filter, carbon filter, RO membrane. That last RO membrane is the only way to make sure that those forever chemicals, which are really hard to test for, I should mention, if someone is concerned about PFAS, you can let them know that it's going to cost anywhere from like $300 to $500 for a customized test for PFAS. And that PFAS is kind of likely in your water, just as a natural, you may even have PFAS in your water from a bottled water that you get. The only way to address that is with a true RO system. So
are the town water systems dealing with that? Is the public water supply dealing with that or no?
No, they're not. It would be way too expensive for a municipality to address PFAS in mass for all the people on a public water source. So it's up to the homeowner if they're concerned about that. There's a really good John Oliver skit, the comedian. I guess he's part comedian, part public commentary. It's not a political reference, but he has a good 10-minute bit on YouTube around PFAS, and he makes some sort of light of it. But all the clothing, all the fabric that we live in, it's in everything. So the only way to address that is with an RO system.
Now, for Pure Point, when you guys go in, how do you guys handle lead? Is that something you also do if there's a lead issue in the water?
Yeah, it depends on how heavy and how strong the concentration is of lead, but a really good softener, actually running through the water through a softener, will actually help address lead concerns as well. And then the best way to address it with the highest level of certainty is also with a reverse osmosis system.
I didn't know that. Now, when you guys go in and test, are you doing a first draw and also, running the water for 10 or 15 minutes, or how do you guys approach that? Because we're told by the labs that we use to let the water, and we can do a first draw. They're happy to test it and tell you there's lead, because there's gonna be, but they tell you let the water run for 10, 15 minutes. Is that standard?
Yeah, so there's a company called Simple Lab I just put in. We offer 2 different tests. One is a heavy metals test, which will add and get a component of lead, then also test for hardness and the total dissolved solid. That's something that we'll do at no charge for a homeowner, because we have a good, our manufacturer is a company called Chandler that manufactures the water treatment equipment that we use. It's a great American-owned company out in Ohio. They offer a pretty good baseline test. But if you want to get a more comprehensive test, we also offer at we're not making any money on it, but we would charge a homeowner about $150 to do a simple lab test. And that simple lab will do both a first draw to see what has been building up in the pipes. So what we do is we grab water from a pipe or a faucet that hasn't been used in 12 hours. And you get that first draw from that appliance. Then also you let it run for 5 minutes, and then you do a second fully flushed component of the test. And that's something we do through our simple lab, which is like a really great testing offering. And that's something you can also share with your home buyers. If they want to buy a test, you can do it online. We have a special rate as a manufacturer and a water dealer, but they can buy a water test and get a pretty good water test from anywhere from like $150 to $200. And they can do that every year if they have well water and they're concerned about it.
Does that water have to be refrigerated? Because I know with the lab that I use right now, they require that the water be delivered within 24 hours. Is that the same with you?
Yeah, we FedEx the water, and it should be in the lab within like 36 to 48 hours. We FedEx it. 24 hours is pretty hard. I mean, I guess certain performant labs, they want to get the results right away. But I also have hesitations about how quickly they actually are in the turnaround of the test. Maybe you guys feel otherwise, but the less time that water has to interact with air and kind of the faster you can get it to the lab, the better is a good rule of thumb.
And educating homeowners.
Yeah, it's, they can recommend that they check out some of the resources like I'll drop a line in the chat around the EWG report. It's it's the environmental working group is EWG. They can do some research and plug in their zip code on that and see what are the contaminants that typically are in a waterway that is in their zip code. There's a bunch of resources online, and we lead with facts and data, and any recommendation we make is always driven by like what's in the water, then how can we address it from moving forward.
Comprehensive maintenance service.
So you want to make sure that every RO system is cleaned and the filters are changed once a year. It's a pretty easy process. You go in with a sterilizer and a cleaning liquid. It's 1 part cleaning liquid, 5 pounds water. You mix it around and you scrub down the RO system. So it's really important to make sure that your ROs get cleaned and maintained every year. A softener is pretty good in the sense that, as long as you're putting in the right amount of salt into the water, into that brine tank solution, they're pretty self-sustaining and should last a homeowner about 10 years. So you can recommend to a homeowner that, every 10 years they might need to get a new system. And then for if you wanted to add like a PFAS filter or a specific heavy metals filter, it's one of those things that's maybe like 2 feet tall, and it's a big blue canister that you plug in and you twist in. We can also go in and replace those and install new ones and give them a new filter change once a year as well on the heavy metals and the PFAS and also a sediment filter. So there's a number of ways that we can help maintain their water and make sure that they have good, good, clean, high working capacity system, whenever they need.
Salt delivery service.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So we talked about the 40 pounds of salt that you have to put into a softener. Homeowners don't want to deal with the delivery, or not delivery, rather. They don't want to deal with like the purchasing and putting in salt into their system. So we actually have some homeowners where we go once a month, and there's a charge to actually put salt into their system and have it turnkey. So we also offer that as well. And it's a way to make sure that, like, for some of these wealthy homeowners, they never have to lift a hand, and it's a truly like a one-stop easy button from our company.
Well, I can tell you, Dylan, coming from our end of it, explaining different systems to clients, especially new buyers, a lot of people are intimidated by that system, and they're unsure what they have to do with it. So it's good that you have that shit. And specialized
UV light, iron filtration. There's a certain way you have to address iron, and then sulfur is the rotten egg smell, and you sometimes need to inject air into a water filtration system to address the sulfur. But we have a host of different capabilities to address any contaminant that a homeowner might see, and there's a number of ways we can address this.
Obviously, the impact on property value, if you have a fully functional water treatment system, is going to help. If you don't have one, energy response protocol.
Yeah,
emergency.
This is an interesting one, right? Like, so the crazy thing about water is that the amount of water and potable water is like finite in the world. Like our environment, as long as we don't mess it up too bad, like gets down into the groundwater, gets evaporated up into precipitation, and then it comes out via rain. And so, the water that we have that's potable, we have to protect. And you really have to, make sure that if there's a spill or something that is inclement for someone's home water consumption, that they're addressing it, they're aware of it, and that they're testing for it.
Technological advancements?
Yeah, there's a lot of good data these days. You can see with the apps that these companies manufacture we're not a manufacturer. We work with American produced, American manufactured water treatment systems. You can see how much water you're consuming, what the contamination level is based on these smart apps. And then you can also get notifications about when you might need to replace the salt based on the water consumption. And so you can also, turn off a system if you're going away for a couple of weeks, or you want to monitor your system when you live in Florida. All of those are options today with the technology available. We're out in the community. We're a newer company. We've been around for about 12 months, and we're always spreading awareness and recommending that people come by and get a free water test from us to see what is going on in their water, so that we can help spread awareness about the impacts of water, how they can treat it, and the environmental benefits, the health benefits, and the homeowner property benefits of having a good water system. We're building up a big referral program. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure Jim will share our information, but we're happy to do referrals, and we have a good I don't call it like a kickback program, but we have a way of making sure that if someone wants to be a good partner to us and share leads around folks who are concerned about their water and would be a good candidate, we'll make sure that we take care of our partners in the space too.
And the area that you cover is just Connecticut, or you're in Greenwich?
Westchester County and Fairfield County are like our primary areas. We'd go a little bit further east from Fairfield County if we have any folks on the call who are a little bit further east up the I-95 from Fairfield County, but those are our primary focus areas.
We talked about education. You guys are certified, or what is your cap?
We go to we're called the WQA, the Water Quality Association. We're WQA certified. I personally attended the Water Quality Association event. Can do continual training and continual certification to make sure that we understand and know what's happening in folks' waters to treat it the best way possible. So it's always important to stay on on your game and continue to learn more, which is why everyone's here on this call. So that's something that we certainly lean into as well. Yeah, we're a stand-up company. You're only as good as your recommendations and your referrals, and you've satisfied customers. We have great reviews on Google. We lean on data-driven pricing, information about what our offering is, clearly outline the benefits and what a homeowner can accomplish, and then also sort of sharing the caveat that we're going to help reduce the water contamination, and the best way to do this is with an RO system and a whole home filter as a 1-2 punch. There's certain ways for budget conscious buyers that they can address portions of their water treatment needs, whether they need to buy a softener, or they want to buy a filter for the whole home, or they just want to go with an RO. We'll also share with certain homeowners, hey, your water is really hard. You need to address the hardness of your water before we can even install a water a reverse osmosis system, because homeowners who have really hard water that's over 7 grains per gallon, it'll actually foul up the RO membrane. So the efficacy of certain systems won't even work with certain water quality that's particularly bad. So we try to lead with data and give everyone the information they need. The big thing to think about is that, you could always improve the water quality. It is an investment in your home, in your family, and in your health. We talked about the TDS meter earlier. It's not people are concerned, is my water unhealthy? You might not get sick by it, but there's certainly ways to improve it. And that's sort of the way with anything health related, is that you got to continue to invest in it. It's not something that you can just slap a sticker on or try to address piecemeal. You want to make sure that you're addressing the contaminants in your water. Bottled water isn't necessarily always better. There's cost concerns. We talked about the PFAS that might make its way into bottled water. There's a lot of misconceptions about water, and something that everyone needs. You should be drinking close to 90 to 120 ounces of water a day, and it's the most important thing that you can put into your body to maintain good health, and you want to make sure that the water you're putting into your system is in good.
Well, I could tell you when I first started out in home inspection, you would go to a house that, that had well water, and maybe it was 90 degrees outside, you're doing a flow test. And, it's natural, you're going to take a little sip out of the hose. And the first time I got water that came back E. coli, that was the last time I drank well water without milking it.
Yeah,
You're like, oh my God, I drank. What happened?
data is power.
Well water versus municipal water.
We talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Municipalities take responsibility for maintaining like a baseline health. There's ways to improve the water. They pump a lot of chlorine into the water to disinfect it. That can also, the water and the air can add to chloramines, which has some long-term, like minor health implications that you want to be aware of. And, well water is what people really should be concerned about, and making sure that they're addressing and at least have a good baseline understanding of like what's in their water, because nitrates, barium, arsenic, there's a number of things that can come into a well water system, and you got to make sure that you look after
that. Installation.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. We have a team of licensed and insured professionals. We'll come in and run an assessment, work with a homeowner to make the right budgetary purchase based on what type of concerns they have, what the data says that's in their water, and then we can come in and, depending on what the setup is, we can get installation done in 3 to 4 hours. The caveat in Connecticut is that you need to actually have a dedicated for the water softener. You can't put that water softener refuse and the contaminants that come in the regeneration cycle into the sewer and like the sump into your pump. You actually have to have a dedicated well specifically for the refuse coming out of a water softener. So that's another element that we can also help with the installation and get a homeowner set up to be with compliance.
Yeah, the state outlawed it going into a septic tank because it was deteriorating the tank. Yep. My understanding is there's no state law about how it has to be remediated; it just has to be removed. Towns have certain codes that you have to follow. Some require a dry well. Some you can just have the water go right onto the ground. But I've seen them run into, downspouts. So, right?
Yeah, the salty concentration is like it's not gonna might like mess up some of your plants and the like, but it's not actually like materially like negative, like it's not horribly bad for the environment. So this is a good piece. Your average homeowner will go through per person about 75 gallons per person per day. I'm a 2-minute shower, so I might not be that same average, but if you have teenage kids, they're taking longer showers. The good baseline is anywhere from 75 to 80 gallons per person is the water consumption you'd expect each day for a homeowner.
And then system comparisons for the cost.
Yeah, we talked about this. Like a good system will last like 10 to 15 years with quality upkeep and annual maintenance. And so, water softener, a little bit more expensive than the data shown here, but that can last 10 to 15 years. An RO system anywhere from $1,000 to $1,800. That'll last 10 to 15 years. You got to change the UV light annually. You got to change the filters once every 12 months in some of these other systems, but the systems are not supposed to be breaking down. They'll have some good lifeline to them, and it's a good investment for folks' homes.
Water quality and rental property. I guess it's all, the landlord's responsibility to provide safe and potable water.
Yeah. Some homeowners or some rental, we haven't done a ton of rentals for folks. I mean, some folks, they're renting, they want to be cognizant of what's going in there in their water. But yeah, it's up to the landlord to make sure that the water quality is high and that they're providing a good, safe environment for any tenant.
Your viewing code is H2O 8832. That's the second code. Seasonal water quality changes, spring runoff.
Summer and spring, more activity, more planting, more farming, more agricultural, more upkeep, more activity on golf courses, more activity in municipalities. The winter has a little bit more road salt that can infiltrate the groundwater supplies, and in the fall, you have to have some of the organic matter that can make its way into the waterways.
I'm gonna skip over this. Commercial, you guys do commercial?
Yeah, so our big thing on commercials, we don't necessarily work with like big commercial entities. What we do is actually offer water cooler rentals to businesses. So everyone here on this call has been to an office, been to a medical clinic, been to a law firm, been to somewhere that has water dispensed from a cooler that runs the water through a filtration system. That's another big part of our business, is that we offer rentals to commercial businesses that don't want to do the 5-gallon jugs of water delivery, and they want to rent a water cooler that provides 24/7 water without needing any deliveries. So that's another big part of our offering. And then yeah, we talked about data. Data is going to continue to grow everywhere. With AI, we're going to have better analysis and better understanding of what's going into the water, and we'll have a better testing apparatuses to understand what's going into the water as well. So data will help improve everything that we do, and ideally most parts of our lives.
Well, that's very interesting. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that? If you want to break in, we've got like 2 or 3 more minutes left. I will let you know if, we have a logo now that I put up. It's going to be available on the website tomorrow for attending this. You can go to our website and you can go to download logos, and it's password protected. The password is Cornerstone. I don't see if anybody's having any questions. So Dylan, I want to thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to post your company's information on our website. So if our guys have any questions or referrals, they can get in contact with you.
Please do. It was a pleasure meeting with everyone. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.